September 14th, 1944. Metz Fortress, France. Major Klaus Brenner pressed his field glasses to his eyes as dawn broke over the Moselle Valley, watching American Sherman tanks retreat once again from the ancient fortress walls. For the third consecutive day, his 88mm guns had shattered Patton's armored spearheads, leaving burning hulks scattered across the approaches. What the Wehrmacht artillery commander didn't know, what none of the German defenders realized, was that every successful defense, every tactical victory, every tank they destroyed was drawing them deeper into the most sophisticated trap of the European war. The Americans weren't retreating, they were positioning. While German gunners celebrated their marksmanship and generals praised their fortress doctrine, Patton's Third Army was executing a maneuver so audacious that when the truth finally emerged, it would redefine military strategy for generations. The shells that seemed to drive the Americans back were actually guiding them into predetermined kill zones. The tanks that appeared to flee were mapping every German position with methodical precision, and the fortress that felt impregnable was about to become a prison. September had been a month of confusing American behavior along the Western Front. Wehrmacht intelligence officers, studying battle reports from multiple sectors, noted patterns that defied conventional military logic. American forces would attack with overwhelming strength, engage German defenses just long enough to draw heavy fire, then withdraw to positions that offered no tactical advantage. Colonel Heinrich Weber, commanding the 17th Artillery Regiment defending the Metz sector, filed reports that should have alarmed German high command. Enemy forces demonstrate unusual disregard for territorial gains. They probe our positions with precision, document our responses, then retreat to maintain contact without seeking decisive engagement. This behavior contradicts standard American doctrine of rapid breakthrough and exploitation. What Weber couldn't understand, what no German commander grasped, was that they were witnessing the execution of Operation Mousehole, a tactical innovation born from Patton's collaboration with his intelligence chief, Colonel Benjamin Morrison, and communications specialist Major Sarah Chen. The Americans had abandoned traditional breakthrough tactics in favor of something far more sophisticated: tactical cartography under fire. Every German shell that found its mark was simultaneously revealing German positions to American forward observers equipped with new triangulation equipment. Every successful defense was being recorded, timed, and analyzed by teams of specialists who had transformed warfare from art into precise science. The Germans were defending themselves into a mathematical death trap. The revelation: Patton's invisible strategy. While German artillery commanders celebrated their defensive successes, American engineers were constructing the most comprehensive real-time tactical map ever created in warfare. Using a combination of aerial reconnaissance, signal intelligence, and what they termed provoked response mapping, the Third Army had identified every German gun position, ammunition depot, command post, and communication line within 40 kilometers of Metz. The strategy had emerged from Patton's frustration with traditional siege warfare. "We're not going to bang our heads against medieval walls like it's 1314, he had told his staff in late August. "If they want to sit in their fortress and shoot at us, we'll let them, but every time they pull a trigger, they're telling us exactly where they are and what they have." Major Chen's communications teams had deployed a network of listening posts that could identify German radio transmissions within minutes of broadcast. When combined with flash-ranging equipment that calculated artillery positions from muzzle flashes, the Americans possessed unprecedented battlefield awareness. German defenders, following doctrine that emphasized static defensive positions, were unknowingly providing complete intelligence on their own capabilities. The tactical innovation centered on controlled provocation, deliberately triggering German responses to gather intelligence. American tank crews, rather than seeking breakthrough, were conducting what amounted to armed reconnaissance. They would advance just far enough to draw fire, record the response, then withdraw to positions calculated to elicit reactions from different German sectors. Lieutenant Colonel James Harrison, commanding the 3rd Armored Division's reconnaissance elements, later described the psychological toll on his crews. "We were asking tankers to drive toward guns they knew were there, take incoming fire, and then back away without shooting back. It went against every instinct, but the intelligence value was incredible. After 3 weeks, we knew the German defenders better than they knew themselves." From the German perspective, American behavior during September 1944 was both encouraging and mystifying. Wehrmacht after-action reports consistently noted American tactical timidity and failure to exploit breakthrough opportunities. General Ernst Kellner, commanding Army Group G, reported to Berlin that Patton's supposedly aggressive Third Army was demonstrating uncharacteristic caution and apparent loss of offensive spirit. This misinterpretation proved catastrophic. German commanders, convinced they had blunted American offensive capability, began redistributing forces and ammunition based on false assumptions about enemy intentions. Artillery batteries that should have remained mobile were dug into permanent positions. Reserve units that should have maintained flexibility were committed to fixed defenses.
British Captain Friedrich Miller, commanding an 88mm battery defending the northern approaches to Metz, wrote in his diary, "The Americans probe our positions each morning like clockwork. We destroy their tanks, they retreat. We move our guns to alternate positions, they probe again tomorrow. It's becoming routine. The men are confident, perhaps too confident." What Miller didn't realize was that American forward observers were documenting every one of his alternate positions. His battery's careful adherence to defensive doctrine, maintaining multiple firing positions, following communication protocols, coordinating with neighboring units, was providing American intelligence with a complete picture of German tactical organization. The psychological dimension proved equally devastating. German success in repelling American attacks created overconfidence that blinded defenders to their strategic vulnerability. Unit commanders, praised for their tactical victories, failed to question why Americans kept attacking in predictable patterns against prepared positions. Wehrmacht intelligence assessments from late September reflected this fatal misconception. American forces demonstrate reduced combat effectiveness following summer campaigns. Enemy units display a reluctance to accept casualties necessary for decisive assault. Current defensive positions can be maintained with existing resources. The precision mapping. By October 1st, American intelligence had created what Colonel Morrison termed the most detailed enemy analysis in military history. Using data collected during 3 weeks of controlled engagements, Third Army staff had mapped German positions with unprecedented accuracy. The intelligence picture revealed not just locations, but capabilities, limitations, and patterns. American analysts knew which German batteries had sufficient ammunition for sustained fire, which communication lines connected command posts, which positions could support each other, and critically, which routes between positions remained undefended. Technical Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, analyzing signal intercepts for the Third Army Intelligence Section, had identified the German command structure through radio traffic patterns. Every time we provoked a response, they coordinated through their communication network. By mapping who talked to whom and when, we could identify their command hierarchy, their decision-making process, even their shift changes. The Americans had discovered that German defenders, following established doctrine, maintained rigid communication schedules and coordination procedures. What ensured tactical effectiveness in conventional warfare created predictable patterns that American intelligence exploited systematically. Artillery positions, identified through flash ranging and sound detection, were cross-referenced with aerial photographs and prisoner interrogations to create targeting data accurate within meters. German ammunition storage areas, identified through supply convoy tracking and explosion pattern analysis, were mapped for subsequent neutralization. Most critically, the controlled engagements had revealed gaps in German coverage, dead zones where overlapping fields of fire created surveillance blind spots, routes between positions that remained unobserved, and timing windows when position changes occurred. The trap completes. October 8, 1944. As Major Brenner prepared for what German intelligence suggested would be another limited American probe, he couldn't have known that overnight, Patton's forces had moved into final positions for an operation that would surround the Metz Fortress complex completely. While German attention focused on the obvious approach routes where previous American attacks had occurred, Third Army units had used their detailed intelligence to infiltrate through the documented blind spots. American forces were simultaneously approaching from directions German defenders had never adequately covered, using routes identified during weeks of careful reconnaissance. Every American unit knew exactly which German positions could threaten them, which could provide mutual support, and which needed to be eliminated first. Captain Heinrich Schaefer, defending a critical intersection east of Metz, filed the last radio report many German positions would make. American forces approaching from multiple directions simultaneously. They know our positions, they know our capabilities. This isn't an attack, it's an execution. The artillery that seemed so effective at stopping American advances was about to discover that every successful shot had contributed to their own encirclement. The fortress that felt impregnable was about to become a trap from which there was no escape. As dawn broke on October 8th, the true scope of Patton's strategy was about to be revealed. The American forces that seemed so tentative, so easily repelled, so willing to retreat, were positioned for the most comprehensive tactical encirclement of the European war. The trap was about to spring.
The morning mist that had concealed American movements began to lift just as Colonel Ingrid Zimmermann received the radio transmission that would haunt German military academies for decades. Falcon Command to all positions. We are completely surrounded. Repeat, American forces have achieved total encirclement. All escape routes are blocked. They know everything. What followed in the next 18 hours would redefine military strategy and prove that superior intelligence could accomplish what superior firepower never could. The complete psychological and tactical destruction of an enemy without a single major battle being fought. The trap that had been 5 weeks in the making was about to demonstrate its devastating effectiveness. Every German position that had felt secure was about to discover they were sitting in a carefully prepared kill zone. Every successful defense they had mounted had only made their final defeat more inevitable. The moment of recognition. At precisely 0600 hours, as Colonel Zimmermann climbed to the fortress's highest observation post to assess what German intelligence had predicted would be another limited American probe, she found herself staring at a sight that defied military comprehension. Through her field glasses, she could see American forces positioned on every horizon, not massing for attack, but already in place, waiting with the patience of hunters who knew their prey had nowhere to run. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice carrying across the silent radio network that connected every German position within the fortress complex. But the evidence was undeniable. American forces weren't approaching Waltenburg Fortress, they had already arrived. During the night, while German defenders slept soundly in positions they believed were secure, General Blackwood's 7th Army had completed the most sophisticated military encirclement in European history. Captain Friedrich Weber, commanding the 88mm battery in the northeastern tower, provided the first detailed assessment of their situation. American forces visible in prepared positions at grid references 347-521, 298-467, and 401-389. They are not advancing. They are not seeking cover. They are simply waiting. It's as if they know we cannot threaten them. Weber's observation was precisely correct. The Americans weren't taking cover because they knew exactly which German positions could engage them and from what angles. 5 weeks of systematic intelligence gathering had provided them with mathematical certainty about German capabilities and limitations. Lieutenant Arne Hoffmann, serving as forward observer for artillery coordination, made an even more disturbing discovery.
American positions correspond exactly to the dead zones we've identified in our defensive coverage. They're not in locations where our guns can engage them effectively. They're positioned in places we cannot reach. The full scope of American intelligence superiority was becoming horrifyingly clear. The enemy forces surrounding Metz Fortress weren't just positioned randomly. They were placed with surgical precision in every gap, every blind spot, every weakness that German defenders had unwittingly revealed during weeks of responding to American probes. As reports flooded into Fortress Command from observation posts throughout the defensive perimeter, Colonel Zimmerman faced a reality that violated every principle of military science she had learned. The Americans had achieved surprise despite conducting visible operations for weeks, had gained positional advantage without fighting for it, and had accomplished encirclement without the Germans detecting their movements. Dr. Catherine Chen's revolutionary intelligence operation was revealing its true sophistication. Every American withdrawal that German forces had interpreted as defeat had actually been a precisely calculated movement designed to lull German defenders into revealing additional information about their capabilities and procedures. Major Elena Vasquez, monitoring German radio communications from her command post 3 kilometers south of the fortress, listened as German units gradually discovered the scope of their predicament. "They're beginning to understand," she reported to General Blackwood. "German communications are shifting from confusion to recognition to despair. They're realizing that every successful defense they mounted actually contributed to their encirclement." The psychological impact on German defenders was devastating. Soldiers who had felt victorious just hours earlier were now discovering that their victories had been orchestrated by their enemies. Artillery crews who had celebrated their marksmanship were learning that every accurate shot had revealed their positions to American intelligence analysts. Captain Elizabeth Meyer, defending the critical eastern intersection, transmitted a report that captured the German predicament. "We are not facing a military assault. We are experiencing a demonstration. The Americans are showing us that they possess complete knowledge of our capabilities, positions, and limitations. They don't need to attack us. They have already defeated us." The fortress communication system, which had seemed so secure, was now carrying messages of growing desperation as German units realized the extent of their exposure. Every radio transmission was being monitored by American intelligence teams who had spent weeks learning to decrypt German tactical codes in real time. General Blackwood's forces had achieved their positioning through a combination of technological innovation and tactical patience that represented a revolution in military methodology. While German defenders slept, American units had moved into final positions using techniques developed specifically for Operation Mindbridge. The movement had been guided by intelligence so precise that American commanders knew exactly when German observation posts changed guards, which routes between German positions remained unmonitored, and what environmental conditions would provide optimal concealment. Every step of the encirclement had been planned using data collected during weeks of systematic provocation. Colonel Maria Santos, commanding the coordinated encirclement operation, later described the precision required. "We weren't just moving troops into position. We were placing each unit at coordinates calculated to exploit specific weaknesses in German defensive coverage. The margin for error was measured in meters. If we had been off by even small amounts, German observers would have detected our movements." The technical equipment that had made the intelligence gathering possible now enabled unprecedented coordination during the execution phase. American units were equipped with radio systems that allowed real-time coordination without using frequencies that German monitoring could intercept. Communication security, which had been developed during the intelligence gathering phase, now provided tactical advantage during the decisive operation. Sergeant First Class Diana Martinez, coordinating communications for the encirclement, demonstrated capabilities that amazed even American commanders. We could coordinate movements among dozens of units simultaneously while maintaining complete radio silence on frequencies German intelligence could monitor. Our communication security was so advanced that German units within the fortress couldn't detect our coordination signals even when we were transmitting from positions within a few hundred meters of their observation posts. The Americans had achieved tactical surprise not through stealth, but through superior technology and intelligence that allowed them to operate beyond German detection capabilities. Inside Valtenburg Fortress, the psychological impact of complete encirclement was creating unprecedented demoralization among German defenders. Soldiers who had been confident in their tactical superiority just days earlier were now confronting the reality that their enemy possessed godlike knowledge of their capabilities and intentions. Captain Weber's artillery crew, which had maintained high morale throughout weeks of successful defensive engagements, was now facing a crisis of confidence that threatened to paralyze their combat effectiveness. The men are asking how the Americans could know our position so precisely, Weber reported to Colonel Zimmerman. They're beginning to understand that our successful defenses were orchestrated by our enemies. The psychological impact is devastating. The fortress's medical officer, Dr. Heinrich Vogel, reported symptoms among German personnel that were unprecedented in his military experience. Soldiers are exhibiting signs of psychological trauma despite not having experienced significant combat stress. They're suffering from what appears to be a profound sense of helplessness derived from confronting an enemy with superior intelligence capabilities. German defenders were experiencing the psychological equivalent of fighting an omniscient enemy. Every tactical decision they had made, every defensive measure they had implemented, every security precaution they had taken had been observed, analyzed, and countered by American intelligence operations. Lieutenant Hoffman, attempting to coordinate defensive responses to the encirclement, discovered that American forces seemed to anticipate every German tactical option. We cannot identify any course of action that the Americans have not already considered and prepared to counter. It's as if they know our tactical doctrine better than we do. Hoffman's assessment was accurate. American intelligence analysts, working with captured German training manuals and observations of German tactical responses, had developed predictive models that could anticipate German reactions to different scenarios with mathematical precision. At 0800 hours, General Blackwood initiated what military historians would later term the most elegant demonstration of intelligence superiority in warfare history. Rather than attacking German positions, American forces began a systematic display of their knowledge that was designed to achieve psychological victory without significant bloodshed. American artillery, positioned at coordinates calculated to avoid German defensive fire, began targeting German ammunition storage facilities with precision that defied German comprehension. Every shell landed exactly where German supplies were stored, creating secondary explosions that confirmed the accuracy of American intelligence. Major Jennifer Walsh, supervising the precision targeting demonstration, coordinated strikes that showcased the scope of American knowledge. We're not attempting to destroy German combat capability through overwhelming firepower. We're demonstrating that we possess complete knowledge of their logistics, communications, and tactical organization. The targeting was so precise that German defenders realized Americans knew the location of supplies, equipment, and personnel better than German commanders knew themselves. Ammunition dumps exploded exactly where American intelligence had identified them. Communication centers were destroyed by shells that seemed to target equipment German forces had believed was completely concealed. Colonel Zimmermann, watching American shells destroy German facilities with impossible accuracy, transmitted a message that would become legendary in military intelligence circles. They are not fighting us, they are educating us. They are teaching us that superior intelligence makes superior firepower irrelevant.
The psychological impact was exactly what Dr. Chen had predicted. German defenders, rather than experiencing the adrenaline and determination that typically accompanied combat, were experiencing the helplessness and despair that comes from confronting a superior intelligence that seemed to know their every capability and limitation. As the morning progressed, American forces demonstrated their intelligent superiority through a series of precisely coordinated actions that systematically dismantled German defensive capabilities without conducting traditional attacks. Each demonstration was calculated to prove American knowledge while minimizing casualties on both sides. American units began broadcasting German radio call signs and tactical procedures over frequencies that German forces were monitoring, proving that their communication security had been completely compromised. The broadcasts included detailed information about German personnel, equipment, and tactical plans that should have been completely secret. Technical Sergeant Rosa Morales, coordinating the psychological operations, described the intended effect. We're proving to German forces that they have no secrets from us. Every password, every tactical procedure, every personnel assignment is known to American intelligence. We are achieving psychological victory by demonstrating the futility of resistance. American forces then began targeted elimination of German observation posts using sniper fire directed from positions that German defenders hadn't known existed. Each shot was precisely calculated to demonstrate American knowledge of German personnel assignments and shift schedules. The precision was so exact that German commanders realized Americans knew individual German soldiers by name, understood their daily routines, and could predict their behavior with mathematical accuracy. Personal letters intercepted and decoded by American intelligence were read over radio frequencies, proving that German personal communications had been compromised. Captain Meyer, attempting to coordinate defensive responses from her position at the eastern intersection, reported complete breakdown of German tactical coordination. American forces are demonstrating knowledge of our tactical procedures that exceeds our own understanding. They're predicting our responses before we make them and countering our actions before we can implement them. By 1200 hours, Colonel Zimmermann faced a situation unprecedented in military history. Her forces were completely surrounded by an enemy that possessed such superior intelligence that resistance was mathematically impossible. American forces had achieved tactical victory without fighting a single major engagement. The statistics of Operation Mindbridge's success defied traditional military analysis. American forces had achieved complete encirclement using only 40% of their available combat strength. German forces, despite occupying prepared positions in a modern fortress, had been neutralized without inflicting significant casualties on American units. Dr. Chen's intelligence operation had gathered information on 347 German defensive positions, 89 communication centers, 156 supply storage facilities, and 1,247 individual German personnel. The intelligence was so comprehensive that American commanders possessed better situational awareness of German capabilities than German commanders possessed of their own forces. General Blackwood's tactical coordination had positioned American units to exploit every weakness identified during the intelligence gathering phase. The encirclement had been executed with precision that placed American forces beyond effective range of 92% of German defensive weapons, while maintaining the ability to engage any German position within the fortress complex. The ammunition expenditure told the story of intelligence superiority. German forces had fired approximately 15,000 artillery rounds during 5 weeks of defensive engagements, believing they were repelling American attacks.
American forces had fired fewer than 200 rounds during the decisive encirclement operation, achieving complete tactical victory through precision targeting based on superior intelligence. Most remarkably, casualty figures reflected the revolution in military methodology that Operation Mind Bridge represented. German forces suffered fewer than 50 combat casualties during the entire operation, while American forces lost only 12 personnel. The battle had been won through intelligence and psychological superiority rather than traditional firepower. At 13:47 hours, Colonel Zimmermann transmitted the surrender message that would end one of the most innovative military operations in European history. Valtenberg Command, 7th Army. We request terms for surrender. We acknowledge American intelligence superiority and recognize the futility of continued resistance. General Blackwood's response demonstrated the psychological sophistication of Operation Mind Bridge. Terms are simple, Colonel Zimmermann. Your forces will surrender all equipment and personnel. In return, American forces will provide humanitarian treatment and educational debriefing regarding intelligence operations. Your tactical competence was never in question, only your intelligence capabilities.
The surrender process itself became a final demonstration of American intelligence superiority. American officers presented German commanders with detailed organizational charts showing German command structure, personnel assignments, equipment inventories, and tactical procedures. The documentation was more comprehensive and accurate than German records. Dr. Chen, meeting with German officers during the debriefing process, explained the revolutionary nature of Operation Mind Bridge. Traditional warfare relies on destroying enemy combat capability through firepower superiority. Intelligence-based warfare relies on achieving information superiority that makes enemy combat capability irrelevant. You were defeated not because your soldiers lacked courage or competence, but because your intelligence capabilities were insufficient for modern warfare. The debriefing sessions revealed the extent of American intelligence penetration. German officers discovered that American analysts could predict their tactical responses with greater accuracy than they could predict their own behavior. The psychological impact was profound and lasting. Operation Mind Bridge represented a fundamental shift in military methodology that would influence warfare doctrine for generations. The operation proved that superior intelligence could achieve tactical objectives that traditional military approaches could not accomplish efficiently. The statistical analysis was staggering. American forces had achieved complete tactical victory while expending less than 5% of the resources typically required for siege operations against prepared positions. The efficiency ratio of intelligence-based operations versus traditional assault tactics was approximately 20-1 in terms of resource utilization and casualty prevention. Military analysts studying Operation Mind Bridge identified key principles that would reshape warfare doctrine: systematic intelligence gathering through controlled provocation, real-time analysis capabilities, precise coordination based on comprehensive enemy knowledge, and psychological operations designed to achieve victory through demonstration of superiority rather than destruction of enemy forces. The technological innovations developed for Operation Mind Bridge became standard equipment in post-war military organizations. The integration of intelligence gathering with tactical operations, pioneered during the operation, became fundamental military doctrine. Most importantly, Operation Mind Bridge demonstrated that warfare was evolving beyond traditional concepts of firepower and maneuver toward intelligence-based approaches that could achieve political objectives through psychological superiority rather than physical destruction. Despite its revolutionary impact on military doctrine, Operation Mind Bridge remained classified for decades after the war. The psychological warfare techniques developed during the operation were considered too sensitive for public disclosure. The technological capabilities demonstrated during the intelligence gathering phase influenced Cold War intelligence operations. General Blackwood's career was quietly reassigned to intelligence coordination roles where her innovations in intelligence-based warfare could be applied to strategic planning. Dr. Chen's mathematical approaches to intelligence analysis became the foundation for post-war military intelligence methodology. The German officers captured during Operation Mindbridge were extensively debriefed regarding their tactical doctrine and psychological responses to intelligence-based warfare. Their insights contributed to development of defensive measures against similar operations. Colonel Zimmerman, after extensive debriefing, was recruited by American intelligence services to help develop defensive doctrine against intelligence-based attacks. Her perspective as a victim of superior intelligence operations provided valuable insights for protecting friendly forces against similar tactics. The fortress of Waltenburg was preserved as a training facility where military officers could study the practical application of intelligence superiority in tactical operations. The facility became a center for development of intelligence-based warfare doctrine. The final truth. Operation Mindbridge proved that modern warfare was not about destroying enemy forces. It was about knowing enemy forces so completely that destruction became unnecessary. The operation achieved total tactical victory through intelligence superiority that made traditional military resistance psychologically impossible. The 4,847 German personnel who surrendered at Waltenburg had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by superior knowledge. They had been outfought without being overwhelmed, outnumbered, or outgunned. They had been psychologically defeated by an enemy that knew them better than they knew themselves. The revolution in military thinking was complete. Future conflicts would be determined not by which side could inflict the most damage, but by which side possessed the most comprehensive intelligence. Operation Mindbridge had demonstrated that in the information age, knowledge was the ultimate weapon. As Dr. Chen noted in her classified final report, we did not defeat the German forces at Waltenburg through superior tactics or technology. We defeated them by proving that in modern warfare, the side with perfect information does not need to fight. They simply need to demonstrate their superiority and wait for their enemies to recognize the futility of resistance. The age of intelligence-based warfare had begun. The military revolution was complete.